They can battle out.
We're live now. You're all useless. Is this what Dave feels like? Is there a bunch of bastards?
We actually have 1 second.
So we totally weren't starting ranting before the stream. Totally off topic and all that.
Off topic.
Totally off topic. Hopefully we will get Sammy back. We do have an empty slot at the minute if Sammy doesn't. I haven't even got a chance to say, Saul, thank you for joining, because everybody's been going fucking mad. So, Saul, thank you for joining.
Hey, you're welcome. I didn't want to bring up that my Samsung it's like 4 years old now, and I think it was like a 4-year-old model when I bought it. So,
Are you catching sparks from that right now?
it just depends if I get it to the computer, I guess.
My phone is literally from the early 2000s.
OnePlus wins. Woo! So, right, back on topic, people. Back on topic. Right, we have in the top corner tonight, we have with us Brian. I'm sure everybody knows who Brian is, but Brian, if you want to give us a shout out.
Hi, I'm Brian. My channel's BrainBug. We usually talk about bugs, but tonight we're here to talk about the election.
There's an election?
Not for you. Next in the line, we have Jefferson Spatchcock. Hopefully, we will get more of Jeff. Always a very good man to put input into things. And if you follow Jeff's channel, there is a chance you will see him sleeping and semi-naked. Jeff has been known to fall asleep on stream and forget to hit the button.
I'd like to point out that the next time that I appear semi-naked, I'm probably gonna try to include some music.
Yeah,
I think I disappointed people with my debut performance.
Starting OnlyFans.
Next we have Dave, and we're going to completely skip him. And then after that we have Saul, who we've just introduced, and then Manda. Manda, have you anything happening this week, or anything that you would like to let us know about? Or who are you? Yes, I know I said it wrong. Who are you? Tell everybody.
Okay. Talk about it later. It's fine.
Right, who moved me? Dave, did you move me?
Yes.
Why did you do that?
Because you said let's skip Dave, and it took me that long to find you.
Right. Okay, Dave's an asshole. Right, this is what you do when you give people fucking control to your stream. Below us, we have Stephen, Rib, or Cider and Port, whichever you want to call it.
Yeah, so Cider and Port is the name of my channel. Well, it is now after a rebrand. I'm going to be doing a sort of similar video-ish, I guess. On Saturday on my channel, I'm going to be kind of covering both of the presidential debates, the vice presidential debate. That's going to be a situation sort of like this. So it'll be me, my co-host, and we'll be bringing some people on. Hopefully, we'll have some good conversations.
Having a Dave in the chat, he's like, not Rib, and posts a link to your channel. Next we have Leo. Leo, thank you for joining us, and you're wrong according to David, but go on ahead.
Well, sure. I mean, yeah, if you want to argue that companies didn't want to invest the money, then I'd be wrong. But if you want to talk about whether they had the money to invest, of course they did. We all know corporations.
MathPig, why did you do that?
Today,
anyway, so yesterday I had a very, very interesting debate that was totally not based with some flat earther from Discord that we found out like halfway through the debate is a flat earther on God versus cosmology. The guy let me summarize the guy's argument, and I'm not even being facetious when I summarize it this way. This is literally what the guy's argument was. Colors and shapes, therefore God. So that was a fun debate. That was on the Agree to Disagree channel that's done by Conspiracy Cats and Creaky Blinders. That was fun. Check that out. I did hit 100 subscribers today, and right now I am sitting at, I just checked it. How do I not? 105 subscribers. So yeah, if you like astrophysics, cosmology, and quantum mechanics and want to learn more about it. Also, if you want to get bread pilled, follow me too, because I'll do that for you. Check me out, subscribe, hit the little bell.
Without stopping and just don't breathe in between things. Leo is your man.
Yes, absolutely.
I just want to point out, MathPig, way to light the match and toss it into the flammable.
Come on now, come on. You know, I would never
walking away from the explosion.
Watching the world burn.
Badger, we are very glad to have a favourite here back again tonight. Someone who's been gone for a wee while. It's good to see you.
Hello. Yeah, I am here. Someone said that there would be arguments, and so far it has not disappointed. As some of you may have noticed, all my social medias are currently on lockdown, apart from MySpace. So if you want to follow me, go to myspace.com/badtemperedbadger.
Does your email still work? Is your email
Yeah,
still
my
active?
email still works.
Just let everyone
Wait,
know
tell us your email.
Tell us your email there.
You could email me at badger@cock.li.
And it works. I've sent him emails and received emails back. It's legit.
It unfortunately doesn't really work if I send emails first, because for some reason it tends to go to people's spam folders.
Yeah,
You will, you will.
It's a mystery as to why.
You will continue to sell Viagra on the side. What do you expect?
Yeah.
I only sold that once.
Well,
And that was to you.
Well, build 1,000 bridges, sell Viagra once.
attempting to bring it back on topic as best as I fucking can. We do have 2 Irishmen, 2 Englishmen, and a lot of Americans tonight.
America! Fuck yeah!
Hey, honey, did you introduce Saul?
I did. I said thank you for joining.
Okay.
Oh, Saul,
Ian, I did
go
a
for it.
thing. I've got an avatar. I did a thing.
Yeah.
Yay!
Yay!
We're so happy to have you. Thank you for coming, Saul.
Yes, really,
bet.
man. You know, even when we were texting afterwards, the fact that we both agreed on that thing, you know, very much appreciate your opinion. A lot of fun last time. One thing we do need to do is we need to not forget about Saul, because he did say to me we all talk too much and we're all scary and he doesn't want to speak up. So we have to poke him.
You'll get used to us.
Yeah.
It's just yeah.
Don't
have.
call me scary.
Well, you know, you're terrifying. What are you talking about?
Oh, I'm only on camera like less than a week. Don't make me go off again. Right. Well, what I basically tonight is basically just going to be a rant. We have the election coming up on Tuesday. Everybody knows how is one of the biggest speakers and shouting people about it. It would be Man Dan. Basically, I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to let Manda run this, because it is this stream is for her, to scream, to shout, to get it all off her chest, and to let everybody else join in that. And if we do have anyone who wants to join, we have one slot open. I will give Trump voters priority. So if you have voted for Trump,
Sammy.
Or Sammy.
If Sammy comes back, you know, he gets.
I'll kick Leo. We'll kick Leo over to Trump voter. It'll be fine.
Okay, my first question then to the panel is, who do you think is going to win? We'll start with you, Stephen.
So I only kind of got involved in U.S. politics, or I got interested in U.S. politics back in 2015, when I think like the vast majority of, let's say, the world did, because, you know, it was Trump versus Hillary. So Hillary did not campaign in the Rust Belt. She didn't have a very big kind of presence there, and that is largely why she lost the Rust Belt. Now, I'm not going to say that Biden has been campaigning in the Rust Belt, but almost all of them, save for Texas, he's leading in. And the Rust Belt swings an election. So, I mean, if you want a prediction out of me, and I'm not exactly a betting man, but if you kind of put a gun to my head and force me to kind of call it now, I'm going to say that Biden is the next president of the United States.
Okay.
Even though Trump is now spewing lie after lie after lie to try and persuade everyone.
Well, he's been doing that since before he was president.
No, his lies are getting more desperate, though.
Does anyone
Okay, so you
actually
got-
listen to what Trump says anymore?
His supporters do, and they believe it.
Yeah.
And the things, you know, this Biden or this Hunter Biden laptop thing, which we all know is bullshit, because there's fucking Giuliani and I can't remember who it was. One of the assholes of Steve Bannon were the ones that discovered it. You know, the guy, the video footage from when the laptop was brought in just magically disappeared. The fact that why would it be in Baltimore when he's across the country, and also it's got all this damning stuff on it, but it wasn't password protected or wiped or anything. It's total bullshit. But the thing is that they are so desperate to get this out that yesterday, did you guys see them take fucking big tech in front of the Senate to complain about them like blocking this stuff.
That was just another attempt for Republicans to posture to run this obviously false fucking narrative that the social media platforms are biased against us.
Red herring.
I think, and like, I'll kind of leave it after this, and I'll kind of like let it go around the room. I think that Trump and the I think that Trump is kind of desperate to have a Hillary's emails version 2 or part 2. Yeah, because like that was to a large extent, I like whether the email thing was as you know, severe or as important as Trump was kind of touting 4 years ago, or whether it, you know, like wasn't. That's kind of irrelevant. The point is that landed, and that kind of caused like this massive kind of stir, and everyone was kind of talking about it. They were like, this is a little bit dodgy, you know. She had all the he's desperate to have that again. He's desperate to have something else to go after Biden with, and this is exactly what it is. It screams of it. It screams of it.
Yeah, I find funny though. It's the fact that they've got nothing against you. They've got nothing against Joe. They are just attacking Hudson.
It's never going to come
before the fucking election,
anyway.
and he's coming up with this thing that like is potentially going to change people's minds. Of course it's there just to try and stop him from getting the election. Of course it is.
There's a romance to the whole October surprise thing, and they're actually trying to fill that. Yeah.
It keeps getting worse though. I was watching this interview on Fox the other day that what the interviewer was talking to, I think the White House chief of staff, and she kind of suggested that there might be child porn on the laptop. And he was like, "Oh, well, you know, I'm leaving that up for the FBI to figure out." So they were both playing off each other because they're trying to whatever they can pull out of their ass for this. But most of us can see that it's not, you know, that it's bullshit. How do you guys feel about the fact that social media is finally stepping up and stopping this stuff from being, being
Why
posted?
weren't they doing this?
No, they're not. Is the problem?
Well, they are.
No, they're not.
Twitter is.
No,
Facebook's not.
No,
Twitter
Leo,
is.
relax. Leo. I'll just kick you from the room then if you're not going to relax, man. Breathe. Let Dave finish.
I am. I'm asking a question.
They
We're not
are
allowed to ask questions.
They are enforcing their rules. They are not stopping.
That's a hard argument to make.
No, but the point is, that was very clear when they started with the Hunter Biden stuff that the source of that was against their rules, and they would not allow
against their rules.
Yes, Twitter came out very quickly and said that.
Depends on how you interpret the rules.
No, they said hacked material, and they considered that hacked material.
But it wasn't hacked. Is the problem?
Yeah, it was. It was. How do you define hacked?
I think
there was access to legally.
It was being presented as if it were hacked, though. Like, we found these hacked.
Well, that's media spinning it to be hacked. It seems like it was stolen. It seems like or they say left at the shop.
Yeah, it wasn't hacked. It was information provided by somebody.
No, I agree with you from that perspective.
And so that's what I'm saying.
They've got to make a quick decision. Their rules were very clear.
They pulled the whole
hacked content on their platform was out.
Yeah, they pulled the whole rules thing so that they had an excuse to make it look like they weren't just deliberately targeting, which I would say they weren't. What they were doing is essentially blocking a completely false story from being ran. But the whole, well, this violates Twitter's terms of service was, in my opinion, more of a cover for Twitter to justify what they did rather than saying, oh yeah, we blocked it because we think it's false, even though it is false.
But at the same time though, like, let's say, you know, they've got a terms of service and stuff out there. This is something that I think has been lost in this particular day and age, especially with, like, you know, COVID, face masks, all this kind of stuff. There seems to be this weird idea that people think that if a private company is doing this kind of stuff, they don't allow this kind of content. It's censorship. Censorship is if the government doesn't. These are private companies, and they can control their content. Now, if you find that creepy, that's actually a really good discussion to have, that these big social media companies have this kind of sway over things. But if they're censoring things or limiting things or
every right to
out, they have every right to, based on the fact they're a private company. They get to do it.
That's a whole can of worms you just opened up right there.
Adrian, anything you'd
Well,
like to
private
say,
companies
Roger?
are
That can of
people
worms
too,
has
so-
been open for a very long time, but the way that people keep trying to, it seems to me that a lot of people will try to like present their claims about this with Twitter and Facebook as if Twitter and Facebook are operating as if they're publicly owned by the country. They're not. They don't operate that way. I mean, it's the same thing that's happening with like the COVID stuff. Like, I have the right to not wear a mask, and they walk into a grocery store. How dare you tell me what I can and can't do in your store? Because that store is private property.
Yeah.
It's their store. You have rights, they have rights. It's a reciprocal thing, and people have sort of lost their minds on this.
Saul, what do you think about? Do you think that the social medias are doing the right thing and finally, or how do you feel about the situation?
Me?
Well,
yes, Saul, wherever he is in the thing.
I'm here. I'm down. I'm right below you.
You're right, honey.
Okay. Oh, well, on the stream you're different, but go ahead, Saul.
Yeah, I can tell what's on my screen. Yeah, I guess I don't know because I can't see behind their screens, right, about what their sysops are doing. You know, whether they're equally blocking certain content that they agree with or disagree with. It obviously the New York Post piece that they locked their account on, that's pretty clear, right? They locked their account on that and waited for them to take it down. So there's I think there's a few cases like that where it's been public enough that everybody can see that they've chosen to block certain content. And I do agree to the extent that they're a private business. I think where they're potentially over time here, them Twitter, Facebook in particular, are at risk is just with some of the historical precedents on large monopolies and their ability to influence things. And so I haven't read the U.S. code provision that's brought up. I think it's section 230 or something like that. It's in reference to media companies is just my basic, that's as much understanding I have of it, is that it's a part of the U.S. code. So I don't know if that means that they're getting certain tax breaks because they fall under that. And so there is a potential there if you align your business to get certain benefits under certain parts of U.S. code, that they may have to either change their terms of service practices or be regulated. That it's going to probably depend on what business model they decide to go for.
And that's a good point. Yeah, because I mean, if the business type, if they're trying to like kind of squirrel their way into the idea that they're essentially like a journalistic kind of endeavor, then yeah, different rules apply. So yeah, that's going to be a bigger issue. That's going to take
sorry,
a while.
man, if I can just jump in.
No.
For a wee bit of content.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so if we can, because you're new, just to give a wee bit of focus, what would you consider yourself? Would you consider yourself left, right, middle, conservative, or you have a pigeonhole? As much as I hate them, give the audience.
Where do you fall on the compass, on the political compass?
If I got to throw a label on myself of conservative or liberal, I'd have to say conservative, but I'd like to consider myself a pragmatist. I really like to look at each individual thing on its own circumstances and its own context, and try to do as much personal research into the topic as I can, whether it's something I agree with or disagree with. I mean, I think that we owe it to ourselves to try to get information and be careful not to overgeneralize. And I think that's one of the things on Twitter, and I'm not on Facebook, but on Twitter, that with these types of topics, it just seems to be a lot of overgeneralization and less dialogue. So it's hard to pin something down on a specific and then talk about the specific nuances.
Can I ask you a quick question, Saul? When you say you're a and I just for clarification, just to maybe, I don't like to use this terminology, but maybe to pin down more accurately where you would truly fall on the political spectrum, because we've got Overton windows and everything, but ignoring those, would you consider yourself conservative in the American sense or conservative in the non-American sense, where you're not really like this hard right, die-hard Trump supporting? And I hate to say it, even though I do think it's true, that American conservatism has devolved into almost like a neo-fascism, whereas like conservatism in Australia is more what we would call liberalism, like Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton in the United States. So when you say conservative, do you mean like American conservatism or more conservatism as it would be used elsewhere?
Yeah, I would say more American conservatism, but I wouldn't put myself over in the. And that's why I said if I got to pick one or the other, all right, well, I'm picking the silo, but I prefer not to put myself in a silo.
Okay.
What I say here is don't put yourself in a pigeonhole.
I'm Catholic, and I'm a natural law believer, and so that means I typically have disagreements with every politician on something.
Yeah,
So
sounds like
Stephen had a question about whether or not Trump actually had COVID. My question, though, I mean, how do you think his having COVID affected, his chances in the race? Badger, what do you think?
I think for his supporters, it'll make them much more likely to. Well, it'll give them stronger support because they've got the whole thing about, well, look, he's had the COVID. It's clearly not a serious thing. He survived fine. Or the other version of that narrative where he's got the COVID. He's clearly the strongest president ever.
Yeah,
So...
he came out with that video of him in fucking Superman shirt, like he,
If he faked it, it's backfired on him.
I wish he'd done that. I wish they'd let him get away with that. Oh my God, that would have been so good.
How do you think it's backfired, Dave?
I think that basically, if you look at, again, following his tweets, he is now railing against anyone talking about COVID.
I'm so sick of. We have like 5,000 new cases a day. We are having the largest surge we've had this entire fucking pandemic. And he's not only did the White House issue a statement of all the things that they did, which one of them was we beat COVID, which clearly they did not. But he's jealous of the fact that COVID keeps getting brought up. He's like, I'm sick of talking about COVID. Well, fucking, what is it? Close to 230,000 Americans are dead just because he had the greatest healthcare in the fucking world for free.
You see, that's what I was saying to you, Pat, right? I just say this and then
the White House also
Leo
pretty much admitted that, well, we're not, we can't beat COVID. They pretty much just gave up, like, well, our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do. Not that we did anything from the start, but the like baseline bare minimum.
It was weird that guy said that, because he said, yeah, we're not going to try to control it. And then he went on to talk about the importance of mitigation efforts, things like, and it was like, that's how you control a pandemic. So it was just completely baffling.
We're going back to the full lockdown tomorrow here in Illinois. They're locking us back down.
Something I said to Amanda. Something I said to Amanda is if they start making references and take for talk's sake 9/11. Trump has caused 23 9/11s, 600 9/11s. You start catching people's attention. At the minute, it's just people's dying, and they just blow it off and they don't really care. It needs to be elevated to the status of what it is. At the minute,
one amusing thing that I heard about that could be used, I think, as a bit of a poking mechanism is apparently, was it Regeneron, the thing they put him on? Yeah. Apparently, for all the anti-abortion people, that particular drug apparently was made using.
It was developed.
Developed using certain tissue samples or something. I forgot all the details, but
and he wanted
abortion
for everyone.
And it's a cure. I called it a cure, but I wanted to touch on that obviously these people don't care.
Let Rib speak. Leo, you speak a few times. Let Rib speak, and then
I had a tiny point to make about it. The reason that Trump is kind of touting that as like the cure is because he has investments in the drug. So the more that he talks about it, the more that he financially benefits. So
also,
of course he's going to be going like, oh no, it's fantastic, it's a miracle, it's a cure for COVID. Of course he's going to be saying it.
He also claims that everybody's going to get it, which is just impossible. Jefferson?
Yeah. I wanted to bring up a point for Stephen, because he was asking about whether or not he actually had it. I think the best evidence to show that Trump probably actually really was infected was the very haphazard and kind of bungled approaches that came out when it was reported that he did have it. Like, it was all over the place. It seemed like they were struggling to figure out how they were going to spin it in real time.
Okay, I have a theory, to be honest with you, because I believed that he had it when he went to the presidential debate. Not only did he have it, he knew it because he went. They were supposed to get tested right there at the debate, and he was late. And then they lied. They couldn't. They wouldn't even come out because they kept asking, "When was your last negative test?" And they had no answer.
Well,
So-
you want to know how we know that both him and Melania were infected prior to that? The night before the debate, at midnight, and somebody went into the public White House records of when they're traveling and everything. They went to a base that does like COVID testing for high-ranking government officials. They got there at like 12 o'clock and left at like 12:17 or something. They went there to get tested, and they tested positive. That's why they showed up to the debate late after the testing was done. So, and they like some sort of like grandfathered in, or there was something like that that still allowed him to be able to go on to the debate stage. He definitely had COVID on that.
He would have been better to announce it right then and there and not done that first debate, because that was a train wreck for his public image.
But he didn't think it would be. He thinks
To us,
he thinks he's magic.
But you know that they told him to do that. They told him to specifically keep screaming in his face and interrupting him because they thought that would make Biden stutter, and it would make Biden look stupid.
Or infect him.
And that's another
right.
thing. He wasn't that far from him, and he's screaming at him. I'm surprised. That's what actually my son is 16. He had this theory that he was actually like, I have COVID. I'm taking everybody the fuck down with me, and that's why he went to get infected.
I reckon that. Well,
I mean, there's also this kind of like thing of like, if Trump, if he kind of bullies, if he bombards them, then to his base, rightly or wrongly, you can kind of guess which one I think. That makes that to them, it makes him look good. Like people look at that and go like, oh look, yeah, he's strong. He's not. Yeah, he's not. Now, obviously, I think that's fucking bullshit because it was, as I can't actually think of who said it, a train wreck, and it massively backfired. But the point is, to his base, they eat that shit.
Yeah, they do love it.
I thought it was quite funny. He was trying to appear strong in the face of COVID while standing on the balcony, looking like he had the lung capacity of a newborn.
Yeah, he was
when
he was breathing. It was hit in his face.
But to be fair, that doesn't necessarily prove that he
Brian.
had COVID. It just proves that he just walked up the stairs.
Yeah, in which we already seen him have a problem with. So
and he is a chunky piece of cheddar.
His
So.
base
who eats
response
all
to
fast
injury.
food. Yes, exactly. So I have what do you guys think? Because like he's gotten to the point now where one of his attacks on Biden is Biden believes the doctors and he listens to the scientists. Has this gone so far, the people in his base, that they just completely reject all science and all authority in the subject?
Yes,
America
has done a fantastic job of setting this up.
Yeah, we are
about the religion.
We are a post-intellectual society right now. At least right now we are. That hopefully changes and improves.
Just
Maybe
the
I
U.S.
change some of that, but
I think the rest of the world looks at us and thinks, "What the fuck's wrong with these people?" When it comes to stuff like that, I mean, I like to think that the anti-intellectual movement hasn't quite taken over Europe yet, has it, fellas?
Typing. Thanks for putting
In
me on
Hungary
the
and
spot.
Poland, it has.
I was just going to say, not to the same degree. Like, there's probably aspects of it and like elements of it here and there, but nowhere near to the same degree. Nowhere near to the same degree. The fact that like he is attacking him for listening to the scientists. I mean, like, I don't know. There are no words to that. There are no words for that. There's
Except
just
that it's fascism.
none.
It's
What he said about climate change, and they were trying to explain to him, why the wildfires were raging, and that it has to do with climate change, and they said that's what the science says. This is what and I know I'm a fucking climate scientist, so clearly I agree. And he literally said, "Well, the science is probably wrong."
And he knows better.
Yeah.
Does
The
he?
whole industry provides.
He said
The
that.
whole
The
industry
scientists will
provides
know.
so many jobs.
What do you mean?
The coal industry,
Provides
fossil
so
fuel
many
in
jobs.
general.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's a little bit of sarcasm, because no, it really doesn't. Not in the United States.
That is definitely.
That's
sarcasm.
not what's being sold.
Yeah.
Well, the
that's
jobs
the
are
thing,
gone,
though,
but they're going
that
to come back.
the fossil fuel industry jobs, the coal miners and the people that pump oil and shit can be easily moved over into alternative energies. Not only that, but there's a shit ton of money to be made in alternative energy, and everybody else is fucking doing it. It's what we have to do. And he made such a big deal about how, because Biden, I mean, I was not thrilled with the fact that, like, I get the whole, like, he's going to keep fracking, but he's phasing it out. And, you know, he's trying to attack him on the fact that he said we're going to do what we can to phase out fossil fuels. And people have said, well, maybe that was too far. He shouldn't have said that. And I think it wasn't far enough, because everybody knows that fossil fuels are the issue right now. But Trump himself is so deep in the pocket of big oil that he's been pushing this whole, like, with the coal thing. And you know, when he originally ran, it was all about, let's get the coal jobs. And it was 8,000 jobs total that are available for coal in the U.S. That's fucking nothing. You can triple that in that area with something like a solar farm.
I want to bring up something too, because there was a study that somebody had sent to me that was showing that solar is now it's either become the cheapest form of energy, or it's cheap.
It's now cheaper than most forms of fossil fuels.
One of the things that design solar panels.
What I think is weird about this idea is that one of the things that happened with this sort of like defeats a lot of conservative economic talking points is that governments all over the world, and China was a big one, invested an enormous amount of money into solar, into its implementation, its development, refinement, whatever. One of the things that I think gets forgotten is the amount of spending that went into initiating the world into coal and oil as an energy source. Like those gas stations that popped up didn't happen because they were super profitable in a lot of cases. A lot of that infrastructure had to be put in place. Like what Henry Ford was doing and GM were doing at the turn of the 1900s. That was very, very different. That was a huge public infrastructure project to actually have this kind of transportation infrastructure that was basically individualistic but relied on a network of gas stations, refined petroleum products to refuel your car.
Sold to chemists first, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the idea. So to say like, well, we can't do this with solar. We can't do it with when we just can't afford it. Like we did before. We came up with all sorts of crazy ideas before. And maybe it was because in the 1900s everybody was on cocaine and.
Admittedly, so I want to say something that I have a question for Saul. Yes, there is a lot of money that we would have to put into new infrastructure in order to phase out fossil fuels and move into green energy. But A, it has to happen and we have no choice. And B, again, we will end up making way more money than we put into it. The one thing that really pisses me off is Trump's stupid rhetoric about wind and all the shit he says about turbines and stuff. Like, oh, if it's not a windy day, then you don't have any electricity. He has literally no fucking clue how any of this works. But he keeps saying this shit. Also, the idea that when the turbines cause cancer and shit, he just says whatever the fuck is at the top of his head, and his base believes it. Now, my question to you, Saul, is since you're conservative, how do you feel about phasing out fossil fuels?
I'm a fan of renewables, but also I'm a fan of the mathematics, and so one of the things that you have to look at is the energy density when it comes to fossil fuels for things like transportation versus
transportation coupled with hydrogen. They're already putting it in the States.
Yeah, it's energy density though at the end of the day. So
that helps, yes. There was a point
that biomass, just as an example, if you wanted to plant biomass along the highway, it's been a while since I watched the TED Talk. It was a guy from Britain. You would need to have cornfield for about 5 miles along the highway to fuel the vehicles that are on it, which doesn't mean that we can't do it, right? But it just means that there's some mathematics that have got to be involved in it when it comes to power density.
Isn't that? Aren't you talking about ethanol production though?
Yeah, that's ethanol.
Yeah, biofuels for vehicles.
Can the guy that lives in the state that has the most ethanol production in the world chime in here?
Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
Well, the first thing I want to do is make a couple points because I think Jeff kind of touched on a good point, and I wanted to allude to that. Yeah, petroleum, the fossil fuels wasn't even big. Like that, there was no real profitability there until we had automobiles. It's also worth mentioning that gasoline, and this isn't like just I should say gas. Like we have gasoline for our cars, but there's other forms of non-diesel gasoline. Well, I'm not gonna say gasoline because that usually refers to specifically what goes in your car. But other forms of gas, that's not. Those aren't even remotely efficient. And we know this because the railroads, at least here in the United States, because like in places like the United Kingdom, they don't do a lot of freight by railroads, at least not like we do here in the United States. In the 50s and 60s, I think it was, and I'm going to speak about one railroad because I think it's really the only railroad that did it. Union Pacific did what they had, their gas turbine electric engines. And this was a turbine that was ran utilizing a type of gas. If you give me a second here, I can figure out what type of gas it was, because it wasn't gasoline.
I think I know which one you're talking about.
But it had to be heated because it was really, really thick. I can't remember the type of fuel, but they got rid of those actually fairly quickly. A lot of those were minutely more efficient than the coal-powered steam locomotives. And Union Pacific's largest steam locomotives, one of them got restored. Anybody that's a big rail fan probably went and saw it in 2019, UP's 4014. That thing would burn 28 tons of coal in 150 miles. And 23,000 gallons of water. And these gas turbine electric engines were minutely more efficient than that. That's why they use diesel. One diesel locomotive on a full tank can go theoretically from California to Chicago and still have, I think it's like almost an eighth of a tank of fuel left. I mean, it's insane. And that's the thing, everybody bitches about the railroad's so inefficient because they got these diesel. Actually, no. Those are probably some of the most efficient freight moving things in the world. And I'm a big fan of nuclear. I also think that we should, wind, using the energy of tides is another one. Hydroelectric, aeroelectric, photoelectric, solar, I think should be used. But nuclear is a big one. I understand people are scared of it. Those are people who generally don't really know much about nuclear and how safe it actually is and the reasons why it fails, and that it would have been so easy to prevent those failures. The companies just didn't want to invest the money to prevent it. But yes, so
I encountered a guy
all the way.
Possibly.
No, Robbie. Brian's next. Sorry.
Damn it! I just typed "Manda's in charge" in the private chat. So I can say fuck all.
I don't have to. I just did a short little input here. There's and this kind of stems from what when Amanda had Jake on when you had Jake from Jake and Hannah on, he was talking about you can sell solar to these pull yourself up by your bootstraps, salt of the earth, sovereign citizen types. It's self-sustaining energy. You have your own self-sustained energy on your own private property. That should appeal. I don't understand why it doesn't appeal more and why they don't sell it that way.
Yeah, you can sell that stuff to Ron Swanson. I mean, yeah, even Ron Swanson would buy that.
It's because solar is associated with crusty hippies with long beards and dreadlocks.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of false rhetoric about it, but I understand what you're saying, Saul. But at the same time, not only is we have a vast amount of alternative energies to fill in for what fossil fuel has done. The technology that we are producing is above and beyond it. We're coming up with new things like every year. Our technology in terms of, especially honestly, if we just fucking would accept climate change as reality and that it's anthropogenic in America, and put the money into it, we could be a fucking decade ahead of where we are now. But it is possible to change that over.
I think are you saying, Amanda, that the corporations don't want to invest the money?
Corporations and the government.
What I find interesting coming from corporations is like the denialism that's associated with this doesn't seem to be very long-serving, right? Like in order to be a successful corporation, you need consumers to be actually alive. So promoting the idea of like, there used to be this thing, and this happened in the late 80s and 90s and stuff, when the idea of environmentalism started popping up, or at least becoming mainstream. It was about pollution and saving the planet. We don't have to save the planet. The planet will be fine. The planet can save itself. The idea is to save the biosphere so it's habitable for us. We are literally going to kill ourselves off. There is no reason to duck your head in the sand and think that that's not a big issue, especially
but there is
business.
for them, and there is. You got to remember these big wigs, these executives and shareholders. What makes you think they want to run a successful corporation? They don't. We can evidence that by the fact of how they're running them today, at least in the United States. They're not running them in a successful, sustainable manner because that's not the point. The point is to use them as a tool through which they can squeeze as much motherfucking profit out of it in as short a time as possible.
If I can just jump in, if I can just jump in, Tippy Bear does have to go and look after the kids, and she did send a question earlier that we just didn't get to. If we could answer that question, it's to the panel just for them before they leave to go look after the kids, because we all know parenting has its needs. So the question they put in is, what is the favorite policy from Joe Biden? Question to the whole panel. We'll start in the top corner looking at what it's like on the stream, and that would be Brian.
Okay, and it's going to be right where we're at, right at the conversation we were talking about, his sustainable energy plan. There's a pretty comprehensive little blurb about it on their on his campaign website. If anybody's interested in reading that, it's the plan to build sustainable infrastructure and equitable clean energy future is the name of the document. So go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. It's a decent plan if you look through it.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes.
I kind of like the idea that the tax plan that's gotten attacked a couple of times because it raises taxes for income earners over people earning over $400,000 annually. I think that's actually a pretty good idea in the midterm. I don't think that because I'm kind of a wonk on like economic stuff. I don't think that you have to actually change a lot of stuff in terms of tax policy in order to get the government spending that you need. I don't think it's a piggy bank system.
Reallocation.
They don't actually have to do that. But in the case of this particular economy, with the rate of acquisition happening at people above those income levels, a kind of requisition tax policy is probably not a bad idea, and I think that's probably a good start.
Dave, you're next.
Re-implementing science when it comes to controlling COVID.
Bastard, I was going to say, believe the scientists, because Brian already stole the one where I was going to stick up for climate science, so I'm just shit out. I'm next, and
To be fair, I've only got this policy so that Manda's allowed to leave the country again, and you can finally get your leg over.
Oh, I swear to God, man, definitely, yeah. Saul, we'll come to you next.
So, I mean, you can't ask a conservative what the favorite policy.
But we will flip it. We will flip it.
Is.
How about we flip it, and I ask you what your worst? What is the one that you disagree with most?
Well, this is going to throw a grenade in the room, I'm sure.
Could I leave you to the end and let?
No,
I'm stealing my burrow again.
I am perched on my seat, waiting to jump on that grenade.
Yeah, it's his policy on abortion.
Go on ahead, Saul.
His policy on abortion.
Okay, we'll come
But
back
I will
to that.
say, in terms of what I like, and I didn't really get a chance to clean it all up, but I'm not against renewables. I mean, I prefer not to go into what I do for a living, but I put a lot of money into renewables on every one of the property and jobs that we work on. So I'm a fan of both. I said I'm a pragmatist, right? So I think renewables are great. Corporations will buy into it when it's good for their shareholders. And I mean, if you have a 401k, you're putting your money in there, counting on that company, like trying to make your 401k as big as it can be. So, again, there's a balancing act there. So I just get concerned about getting too aggressive with taxes to pay for things. And that's what's made renewables cheaper for the average person is the tax benefits. We looked at putting solar on our house when we first moved here, but the rate of return,
that's government spending.
Pretty well, yeah. You're getting a rebate from the government to put the solar on the roof.
Exactly.
And I would also, that depends. If I can just say on that, and then we're going to work our way around the room to answer the question for Tippy before that grenade explodes. Depending on the government. Oh no, you're fine, man. This is why we're here. Depending on the government. My daughter's uncle put in for a government grant after he bought an hybrid. He had to put in very little money, and he then got a solar-powered charger put outside his house, implemented by the government, funded mainly by them. Like 90% of it was paid for by the government. He can then charge his car for free. He built himself basically a Tesla battery, so when he's at work, that solar panel is now charging the house, and he bought a wee box for the car, so when he hits a button, it's not a hybrid anymore, it's now a full electric. He's getting 80 to 90 miles per the gallon, and the government is paying for most of that. So there is, depending on what subsidies and what government you're in, over here they are really pushing that. They even prioritize fucking parking. They put the electric charging point right up beside where you're supposed to go, and it's only for electric cars. You get a fine if you park there and you're not. And
Can I
is
ask
free
the Americans
charging.
a question? Can I ask the Americans a quick question here? Are you having a problem in your cities the same as we are? The reason we've gone electric quickly is our city, the air in our cities is hitting dangerous levels at certain times of the year.
I know the mayor of London did apparently really good work in reducing the pollution that was in that city, but London is also a really, really, really fucking dirty city, and I would never step foot in it because I'd probably end up so fucking high on cocaine. It's not funny.
No.
I mean, during some of the lockdowns that occurred in some certain communities, especially like the LA area and in Michigan and the Detroit area, the visibility and light pollution, all that stuff just massively went away. So there is something to be said about that.
Well, that's visually, you know, the chemicals are always still there.
Cities for sure.
Chemicals are still there. The visual effect has dissipated a wee bit.
No, yeah, obviously that's true. But I mean, for I don't know if there's something actually physically going on in terms of like, you know, people feeling an urgency to actually get rid of those pollutants. No, there's not a lot of urgency to do that. People just keep driving.
That is one of the main reasons that I will never live in a big city. Is I grew up. Yep. Pollution is basically zero.
Exactly.
You know, it is a beautiful thing too.
Cities are dirty.
Can I ask a question? Does Biden have a policy on abortion other than supporting Roe v. Wade?
Not really, no.
Okay. Who's next for what?
Next for the tippy question is Manda. I assume that you would agree with Brian on.
Yeah. Obviously, it doesn't go far enough, and his original plan was not good at all. But because Bernie has worked with him on it, and Bernie's worked with AOC, it's not the Green New Deal, which I obviously agree with, but it's close. And the fact that he will put us back into Paris, which is absolutely fucking necessary. So.
Yeah, and the Sunrise Movement helped a lot in contributing to his change.
Reb,
yeah.
Have you anything that you would like to answer on Tippy's question?
Wait, Jefferson, you're muted or something. We can't hear you.
Jeffy.
Yeah. Is he talking to us? Oh, I was just talking to somebody else.
Yeah, we can't.
Can I not hear him?
I can't hear him either. Damn it, Jeff.
Reb, what would be your favorite policy of Biden?
Sorry.
Okay, so had you told me that I was going to be giving this as my answer a few months ago, I would have slapped you right in the mouth. But
I'm looking forward to this.
Considering his attitude and his response on the debate stage, on the second debate versus Trump, I kind of genuinely think that Biden is actually going to fight for a $15 minimum wage.
I do too. It passed the Democratic House. It's already passed the House.
Yeah, like
but
the
amount the Senate isn't
good. Like the amount of good that is going to do. Even though I do not like Biden, I don't necessarily want him to be president. But given who he's up against, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
In the words of the absolutely brilliant Nina Turner, it's like, well, would you rather eat a full container of shit or half a container of shit? They're both bad, but there's one clearly better option.
Nina Turner is good about stuff like
mainly,
that.
Yeah, mainly just because there's just less of it. But yeah, I think that if he genuinely does support a $15 minimum wage, I mean yeah, you have me right there. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yep. Who's next? It's Leo.
What's up? Oh. The thing.
He's not even fucking listening to the question. He's commented over everybody, and he didn't even listen to the question. Somebody kick Leo.
Oh, I listened to the question. My mind went away just for a quick
Favorite policy of Biden, Leo?
I don't know if I could pin down one policy to just favorite. I will say this, and I'm going to make a statement and then expand on that. Biden is an absolutely horrid candidate. But the thing with Biden, as we've already seen, is that he can be moved on things, which is inherently makes him a better candidate than Trump, because Trump won't ever move on anything unless he thinks it helps his fucking numbers. So that is, I mean, for me, it's all of the policies that Biden has laid out thus far don't go far enough, but the chances of getting a politician that is ever going to go as far as we need to go in literally every area is just it's just unreasonable, because even if we did have a candidate like that, like Bernie Sanders, the odds of any of that actually getting implemented, especially in full in the government, is not going to happen. It's just not unless the Republican Party became a super minority and the Democratic Party became overwhelmingly progressive. But the one thing that I would say is just the biggest reason that I'm voting for Biden is because I have actually read theory. I've read Marx. I've read Engels. I've even read, I don't believe that what they did in practice is anything remotely close to acceptable, but what these guys, the guys that I'm about to name, wrote, if you've read it, you'll agree with me. If you haven't, fuck off. But what people like Mao Zedong and Vladimir Lenin wrote, I'm not talking about what they did, I'm talking about what they wrote was good. So I've read theory, and the thing is that Lenin would have considered Bernie an anti-revolutionist. He would have considered him what we consider Biden. But the thing is that they said is that we still have to appeal to that sort of what's the term?
But
the liberal bourgeois, because moving in that direction is still better than moving right. So voting for Biden and going in that direction, even if it's literally just one more step up the staircase rather than 5 like we'd get with Bernie, it's still not going down the staircase, which is what conservatives, what staunch conservative evangelicals.
Apart from the fact that doing that over the last 30 years has moved the entire country further to the right.
Dave, quick response from Jeff, then Badger will answer the question, and Brian is biting at the bit to ask a question. So Badger, from an English... Oh, sorry, Jeff. Fuck me, I'm getting... Oh, Jeff, go.
No, I just wanted to point out, I kind of agree with what Leo's doing there, but in a lot of cases, I don't know that left-right dichotomy actually exists. Well, at this point, the majority of people, if Biden wins, it's because people are voting against Trump. They're voting against an incompetent, dangerous idiot who is incapable of protecting them from a pandemic and allowed their grandparents to die.
That's the point I was making.
Right.
By voting for Biden, we're not continuing in what we're doing now, or more appropriately, the lack thereof.
Right.
Yep.
Now
Biden is some form of progress, even if very minimal.
Right.
Badger.
Now, if the situation, oh, sorry, I wasn't
Oh no,
done
go
yet.
on, Jeff. Go on. No. I'm just. There's a lot. Go on. Go, Jeff.
If this scenario actually carries over and Biden ends up pushing things over to the left, there. I mean, so let's say that the House gains support, the Senate switches control, goes Democratic, and then you get Biden.
It's a blue trifecta, is what you're saying.
Yeah, you get the whole blue wave, right? If they do that, they've got basically 2 full years to wield power. The issue right now is that Democrats traditionally have not been willing to wield power.
Not the way the Republicans do, yeah.
Not the way the Republicans do. So if they're going to do that, they've got 2 years to reform the courts, possibly expand the Supreme Court, and then do some things.
They better fucking do that, because
Leo,
if they
Leo,
don't,
let the man finish. Just this is throwing the whole thing off.
I know what I'm saying. I'm just adding commentary to what he's saying. I'm not saying
just let him get his point out, so we can go to Badger, and then we can move on to Brian's, because this is go.
Yeah. If those things happen over time, then there's a possibility that a more progressive strain will pick up after the fact and carry on from whatever Biden's first or second term or whatever it is happens. There is also, unfortunately, a very real, unfortunate possibility of a regressive kind of like right-wing relapse, which could happen. And if the Democrats are afraid of actually wielding power and making sure that things like debt reform and all this kind of stuff that actually benefits people, those don't happen, and they just allow a kind of crazy narrative to paint them as being corrupt and beholden to the
summing it up,
powers behind the scenes
against them so far.
They'll be done.
If they don't impress in the first 2 years, all the anti-Trump stuff is gone.
They've got a honeymoon period of 2 years, and they need to win it. If they don't, they're going to fuck things up. And if they get themselves in a position where they've got Biden there and then a divided House and Senate or something like that, given the way that Republicans have kind of set things up, they're going to lose, and they're going to keep losing badly. And their track record is poor.
And a lot of that plays into if the progressives that are running actually, like the one who's running
really quickly, just do it really quick so I can ask Badger really quickly.
Yeah, I know it's going to be quick. If they get elected, that's really going to help, because we all know the power doesn't reside with the president; it resides with the Congress. That's where the legislative power resides. Also, those individuals will be able to be like, "No, Biden, this is what you said you were going to do. You better start doing it now." Like we need those progressive candidates that actually stand the fuck up for their constituents.
That won't matter.
Badger,
I think it will.
Badger, your favorite policy from Biden, and then Brian.
Oh, what was the question? Sorry.
What is your favorite policy from Biden?
Oh, fracking. I
fuck
think fracking is a wonderful idea, and it's fracking is absolutely perfect, and it's not something that I've been ranting about on my channel for like 2 years.
Thank you.
Oh, that's fucking funny,
Brian.
I feel really
when I put my when I open my channel up again, there is literally a video from 2 years ago of me saying fracking is stupid.
Brian, go for it.
I got a question for everybody. Okay, so do you think that the GOP was kind of shot itself in the foot by attacking the mail-in ballots? Considering now that they're kind of putting lockdowns on the polls and stuff. Michigan's got I believe the courts just ordered that all votes have to be counted by midnight. I
don't think it'll matter given the Supreme Court.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna let Leo answer first for no more than 5 minutes. Fuck me, breathe, man, and let it get it out of your system. So Leo, you go first. What would be your answer to Brian's question?
Okay, I'm trying to figure out a good way to put it in my head so that I can provide a response to it. Can summarize the question?
Cut him off. He's not ready.
Where's the kick button?
So yeah, it's essentially the people that vote on election.
The mail-in ballots. Yeah,
people on the left are going to be. Most of them have done mail-in ballots or early voting on election. On election day, it's mostly conservatives out there going to the polls. People do on the left, but now the polls are getting kind of locked down. They're putting kind of a tighter rein on how you can vote. And I know that last election there was people wait until 2 or 3 in the morning, and now they're saying, "Oh, you got to be done counting the ballots by midnight."
On November 3rd, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would word it in the same way that you did, that Republicans shot themselves in the foot, but I think that the way that they sort of attacked mail-in voting was wrong, because the military, that's a big part of how the military votes. That's a big part of how a lot of elderly people vote. And given that we're in a pandemic, a lot of people don't want to go to actual polling locations, especially when we have mainly Republican states and Republican courts and Republican governors and what have you, setting things up in a way that essentially what they're doing is, and it's funny that you tend to see this more in majority black voting districts, that they're limiting the amount of polling locations, increasing the wait times that you have for voting, which is obviously an attempt at discouraging people from voting, because who the fuck wants to stand in line for 12 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours, 7 hours, what have you, to vote? And now we're seeing that, we can't count these mail-in ballots if they don't come in by a certain date. What we're seeing is one whole political party at the head of the presidential regime, because it's not a fucking administration, it's a regime, literally saying that, these Americans, these qualified Americans who are voting shouldn't have their votes count because it didn't get in fast enough. Yet people say that, they're not fascist at all. This is literally what fascists do.
Okay, well, on that,
literally,
Leo, thank you very much, and we will move her on then. So that's out of your system now. Rib, would you like to go?
What question am I answering? I'm very sorry.
Oh my goodness! Is
Mail
there
in
anybody here in the panel actually paying attention, or am I doing the fucking show by
I'm
myself?
trying to get Republicans.
Looks like me and
in
Mando
here,
were
but
paying
they're not- They're not going for it. Just
I
put the question very, very
appreciate
quickly. I'll tell you my answer.
I appreciate Stephen's efforts. I want to talk to some conservatives.
What I think they know that more Republicans are going to go physically to the polls because they don't care about COVID. You know, and plus with the way that Trump and his cronies have attacked mail-in ballots, there aren't going to be a lot of for Trump ballots. And so it's not shooting themselves in the foot. They are suppressing votes from our side. And I think that's complete bullshit. I'm glad that they called out Kavanaugh about it. Because he tried to actually like get the whole, you know, he tried to put into the Supreme Court discussion that, you know, there will be election rigging in terms of the ballots that are counted afterwards, which everybody was like, what the fuck, dude? You can't know. What are you doing? So I'm glad that they called him out on that, but
where it can flip the election. No, the fuck counting votes, legitimate votes isn't flipping an election, you drunk fucking rapist.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Rib, let your bit in. I think you may have got us I think your little fishing may have got us
Oh, hey, Kavanaugh. I like beer too.
Okay, good.
But I don't rate.
Okay, all right, but
Shush.
Shush.
Hi, second mom.
Yes.
Nice
Hello, mother,
okay.
for turning up. Thank you, Port Granny, for turning up. Stephen, have you anything that you would like to add onto the topic? And then I'm going to go to Dave, and then we will see Vince. What is it? Vincier Otomori. If you would like to join, hit me up on Twitter. My Twitter is
Father something or other.
Yeah, it's in the chat.
Conservatives. It's so much fun.
Hit me up on Twitter if you want to join. Brenda, I did say at the start that Trump voters and conservatives do get priority, so that's why I'm reaching out to them.
Really? But Brenda's so awesome.
Theo! So if you want to join, you're more than welcome to send me a Twitter message, and we will sort that out. Dave, Brad,
what a liberal is if
Steve,
you come in here.
yeah.
We'll straighten out your misunderstanding about what a liberal is.
Stephen, have you anything that you would like to say before I jump across to Dave, mute myself, go to Icon, and scream into a pillow?
Well, yeah, look, I mean, I think it's kind of obvious that, like, an awful lot of more left-leaning or kind of centrist people will kind of early vote, or they'll mail their ballot in, and an awful lot of right-wing people will go to the polls, and you kind of get more of like a quicker answer if you go to the polls. The problem with that is because so much more conservatives are going to go to the polls, there is a possibility that on November 3rd it's going to look as though Trump has won. And I said earlier that I wasn't a betting man. I am 100% a betting man on this. If it looks on the 3rd that Trump has won, he's going to call an early victory, and he is going to obstruct every other attempt to try and raise votes for Biden, because they're naturally going to come in later. This is going to be a longer process. We're not going to know the results on the 4th. We're just not. Especially because of the like overwhelming volume of mail-in ballots, especially this year because of COVID. It's just not like, this is not going to be a quick process, and he's absolutely going to try and steal the election. Absolutely.
Can I
see the
before
video?
you jump to Dave, I just want to say something, is that, you know, election night isn't a thing. It's something that the media has pushed in order to, you know, get views and stuff. There's no reason that we have to know on November 3rd.
There is a reason that you must have to watch, and purely for views and all the rest of it. Streaming it on Twitch Live. Yes, gonna stay up all night with Work in the Morning Honey. Totally fucking worthwhile. Totally worthwhile.
I'll probably be watching Bosch. I'm sorry.
Oh yes,
I'm going to be watching the Joe Rogan experience only because Kyle
Kalinske,
from Secular Talk is
Secular
on.
Talk. God, I fucking love that guy.
Dave,
Sure.
have you anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, we're doing critical questions before the stream on Tuesday.
Well, sorry, Brian and I have a show on Tuesday too. So
what?
At 7. So that should.
Well, that should work.
It should be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Brian and I have PZ Myers on to talk about the science of transgenderism.
Again, yeah, he's gonna be.
I fucking love PZ, man.
Shout out again to Vincier. Do I need to put the link in the chat because you don't have a Twitter? Could you at least acknowledge the host of the channel of the live chat you are spamming? I am offering you an invite to come in and put
Probably a troll.
I am offering your invite to come in and join the chat to put your voice across. At least acknowledge me.
It's definitely a troll.
Yeah. If you want to come talk to us about the whole ballot bullshit, go ahead. But just fuck off if you don't want to talk to our faces. Dave, what do you have to say about the?
I think that when Trump started the mail-in ballots, he was convinced that the Democrats were probably going to win, but it was going to be after the event. I think now it's more likely the Democrats are going to win on the night, and it's going to be the Republicans that could potentially steal it after the event. So yes,
how do you figure?
Because if Democrats win it on the night, he can use every court battle to try and swing that.
Did you see the Vince Jones
Not
video
if
that
states
Vince did
certify
for
the
Ted?
results.
Hey, Vince, is it Vince Jones? Would I be right in saying that?
What?
Are you talking about the Red Elephants guy on YouTube?
No, the guy, the black guy that does. He's on the news. He's on CNN. Vince, somebody? No, I'm possibly getting the name wrong. He did a TED talk.
You are so getting the name wrong. Yeah,
I have to look it up. But he did a TED talk, and he went down into
Van Jones.
Pardon?
Van Jones.
There you are. And he went did a TED talk where he went down into the legality of if Trump didn't, the actual safe transfer of power. The going to give up power and going down the legal route if Trump really didn't want to. There is loopholes, there is ways, and it is definitely possible legally for him to perform a coup and not leave the actual White House.
He'll be escorted out by the United States Marine Corps.
It depends on the legally.
He'll be escorted out by the United States Marine Corps. I would love to see Donald Trump try to fight them. Oh, fuck, I would love it.
It would.
Well, he was pretty good at wrestling a few years ago, so it might be entertaining.
Except Marines are real. The WWE is entertainment.
That is also very true.
Okay, so Badger, what about you?
Yes. Hello. What about me?
The question was, do you think that the Republicans shot themselves in the foot with their attempt to stop the, what was it? Brian asked the question.
Yeah.
Brian's question.
About
Stop
the
what?
mail-in ballots.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, but specifically, I don't get why America is so stupid about mail-in ballots. We literally have postal votes in the UK, and they work fine. They've been shown to have sort of equivalent or possibly slightly less fraud than in-person voting. You do not need to provide any reason for having one. You just want to say, I want to vote by post, and they go, okay. And then you just vote by post.
You're neglecting.
I don't understand why America is so stupid about this.
The Americans start actually factoring in the fact that suspicious mailman, who is a civil servant / government employee / deep state operative, is fucking with their paperwork after they've submitted it. That's part of the problem.
There is no data at all proving that there is fraud involving mail-in ballots. We've had mail-in ballots.
I know
since
that.
The fucking Civil War. And one of the things that this guy put in chat, we don't have a problem with absentee ballots. We have a problem with unsolicited ballots being sent out.
Yeah, the links in the chat.
That doesn't matter because once the ballots are checked out, there are people that have had their votes rejected, their own votes, because their signature didn't match exactly. Yep. There is a system to this. Fraud does not happen. In fact, the 80% of the time that there is fraud involving elections at all, guess what fucking side it's coming from?
Republicans. From 2000 to 2014, out of over 1 billion with a B ballots cast, 14 were potentially, keyword potentially fraudulent. 14 potentially fraudulent, not verified as fraudulent, potentially fraudulent, out of over 1 billion cats. The United States has one of the safest electoral systems in the country, unless, you know, Republicans.
You have to account for rat fucking.
If I can, Amanda, say your bit, and then I would be genuinely interested to give the floor to Saul and see if there's any questions he would like to ask us, and you know, poke the bear, so to speak. So, Amanda, if you want to...
I just wanted to speak to what Badger said about Americans being stupid about it, and this is the only time this has come up, because Trump doesn't want the mail-in ballots, because he knows most of the mail-in ballots will be for Democrats, because we are not idiots and we want to protect ourselves during the pandemic.
And
so that's why he's blocking it.
Yep.
Saul?
Well, I mean, I try to be quiet because, I mean, there is a lot of overgeneralization, and you can't really dialogue with like excessive overgeneralization. But I will say that with regard to fraud, right? As long as there's human beings involved in the process, there's going to be somebody trying to cheat. It has nothing to do with whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, a conservative or a liberal. When human beings are involved in it, and there's, you know, whether it's notoriety or money involved, or desire to be in charge, always somebody's going to be looking for an angle, whether it's a legal leveraged angle, you know, like we were talking about companies trying to get government refunds on things that they're doing with solar and whatnot,
or like Republicans, or
right?
like Republicans looking to get absentee ballots kicked out by court order.
Yeah, fascism, you know.
That's human error too. That's human controlling.
Or limiting polling locations in generally black communities when that's a community that overwhelmingly supports the Democratic Party. That's just, you know, human error.
Poll taxes.
There's only one drop-off box in each county in Texas now.
If I can just say, Saul spoke, then Jeff attacked him, then Leo attacked. I'm not using attacking a bad word, and then Mama had her bit. So if we can just do one at a time and let the man reply to each one individually, I don't want him to feel. Please come back, Amanda.
I'll recede into the darkness.
Yeah, I don't want him to feel overpowered. You know, one at a time.
It's always easier to express why you're personally doing something than it is to tell somebody else why they're doing it. So
if I can also say, Vincier, thank you very much for joining, and if you can just give us 1 wee minute till we finish up Saul having the floor, and then we would definitely like to communicate with you.
I do think that it's interesting, though. What would the panel think since the majority of soldiers in the military do absentee balloting? I think that was what Leo said. Do they think that most people in the military are voting conservative or liberal?
Well, I mean, I don't think that absentee voting or that mail-in voting has been a problem until this election. Wonder why.
Well, right, but if the assertion is that the Republicans want to cut off counting ballots that don't arrive there by midnight, and the majority of the military votes one way or the other, if the question is, did the conservatives shoot themselves in the foot?
Actually,
right?
one of the criticisms that's actually been leveled against them is some of the suggestions that they've made and some of the moves that they've attempted to push actually would hinder active duty service people from being able to vote absentee ballot. That's actually been leveled, and the response to that has been like, well, you know, what price against corruption, essentially, or whatever. There seems to be this weird narrative coming from the Republican Party that democracy is dangerous if you leave it to democratic processes. What you need to do is you need to leave it to an authoritarian regime of weirdos who pack the courts with ideological people that, you know, are identical to you, and then when you get kicked out because you're unpopular, those people will just like create a regime that, you know, fosters your worldview in perpetuity. They don't care about troops. This is one of the problems that's happened. Conservatives do not give a fuck about active duty service people. They frequently send them out to die in bullshit wars.
That's another serious overgeneralization.
Well,
I get that, but it's actually been demonstrated. It's been demonstrated by people like Donald Rumsfeld, George W. Bush, Donald Trump. It's even been demonstrated by Democratic regimes like Bill Clinton and even Obama. the fact that the military gets thrown out as this idea, like, okay, well, what about this? Republicans don't care as much about active duty service people as they pretend to.
I did want to add really quick, because and this is from August 31st.
Really quick, Leo, because I want Leo because Vince here has joined.
Yes. From militarytimes.com, reputable military magazine. They asked the question: if the presidential election were held today, whom would you vote for? Joe Biden, 41.3%. Donald Trump, 37.4%. They also say that according to to their polls, 49.9%, so about 50% of respondents had an unfavorable view of Donald Trump president, compared to 38% who had a favorable. So right now the military is leaning towards Biden.
Dahl, have you anything you'd like to retort to that? And then I do want to move over to Vincier as well. Amanda is trying to sort Angel as well. Some stuff needs to be sorted, so Amanda may pop out at any minute. I think we have Maya hopefully jump in and sort that. So Saul, if you would like to retort, and then we will move over to Vincier.
Yeah, without seeing the poll questions, I mean, I can't speak to how the questions. And we all know.
I can give you the
Leo, let him finish.
You can ask questions a certain way,
chat here.
And if you want to form a narrative around the statistics, it's easy to do that. I mean, I don't dispute the numbers. I'm just saying that without seeing the questions and how they were asked, it's very hard to say, like, well, what do you really think?
That seems like trivializing the polls because they don't seemingly agree with your position on them. The link is in the side chat there.
Yes,
I put it.
And he will look
well,
at the
I
link.
can tell you that having taken phone polls here during this election cycle, that some of the questions you get asked are like a triple negative, and you're literally left trying to figure out, well, if I say yes, is it yes that I don't not agree, or do I agree? Okay. I don't even know what I'm agreeing to, because
Jeff, go ahead real quick, and then we're going to move to Vincier. I don't want to lose Vincier.
The particular poll that actually Leo actually cited is basically just like Trump or Biden, which one? It's that simple. So yeah. I get what you're trying to do, but that particular poll, that's military times. They tend to, if anything, favor just military people.
Yeah, it does skew a little bit.
Yeah, I do understand where Saul's coming from as well. There is that old, I think it's the 70s show, Dave may be able to help me out in this, where a guy, and they're in an office, and they're talking about polling, and he asks him this long line of questions, and he agrees to one thing. Yeah, Dave knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then 2 minutes later, he asks him the same sort of questions, but at the very end, he answers the exact opposite. You know, and it is a sketch and it is a skit, but it does show the point.
Yeah, but
on that's Vincier.
A conservative talking point, but it's not supported by the general data that we have on polling.
Okay.
Dave. No, the point is that you can get what you want with the results you want from any poll.
You can, but at least here in the United States, that's not actually
okay. Vincier, that's when I said Dave, say his bit, and then we're going to move. Vincier, thank you very much. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Are you there?
Is it Vinciere? I think it's Vinciere.
Yeah, that looks Italian.
Vinciere Atmore.
If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Cannot hear you, Vince.
No, he's sleeping.
Yeah.
No audio, no video. So,
are you sorting it out? You can type in the side chat.
Yeah, type in the side chat, because it just
just type in the side chat. What's going on?
Let us know, or even live chat. I'm watching both, and
I do have to run. I got to spend some family time and kids to feed. So
of course, Saul.
Hey, I appreciate y'all inviting me again. Thanks a lot.
Perfect, man. Thank you very much, and
more than willing to.
Always welcome, and we'll definitely have to set up some. I'm going to throw you into a debate you don't even know about yet. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Come on my channel for a chat sometime.
I have a policy. I don't do debates.
I'm going to put you into a live discussion.
Dialogue. I don't do debates.
Yeah, we're going to have a dialogue with one other person while I just sit and mod.
Well, there you are.
On my channel for a chat sometime. Be fun.
All right. Be safe, everyone.
Thanks very much for coming, Saul.
Thanks for coming in.
Good night.
Bye.
Yeah, perfect. Vince is sorting it out. You need to go into your settings at the bottom, man. Cam and mic, change audio and stuff.
You just had sound waves popping up.
Oh, there we go.
Is that working now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, we can hear you, man.
Perfect.
You guys have some pretty interesting views of Republicans.
If I can just ask, man, just so we pronounce your name correctly, can we use shorthand Vince or Vincier, or was Jeff correct in the pronunciation?
No, Vincier is fine.
Okay. Yeah, I do have some views on Republicans. You know, I'm a market.
Leo, no, that's Leo. Vince, the floor is yours, Vince.
So I think the general consensus on the Republican side is we're not against absentee ballots. We're not, even mail-in ballots would be okay. But you have to understand, we are living in some unusual times. I understand that because of COVID.
Definitely.
But mail-in ballots is not a common thing in the United States. And to try to do this in mass, if it can be done with legitimately, with good checks and balances to make sure that every legal voter can be authenticated, and I'm okay with that.
It is, yeah.
It is. Jeff?
No, that's not true. That's not
Yes,
true.
it is.
We've already seen the Democrats go to court in key states trying to get unsigned ballots through.
Can you have citations for that?
Leo, no. We've literally we know.
I'm just asking a question. He made a claim.
Let him put out his hand, and Jeff's got his hand up, so we're gonna do this.
Yes, very civilly.
Yes. Look them up yourselves. Oh, both sides are going to court. Our side is going to court to make sure we don't make it too easy that could be fraud prone, but we want to make sure that all legal votes are counted, right? I would hope. Any fraudulent vote that's cast disenfranchises legal voter, right? I live in a blue state. I've received 2 absentee ballots for my daughters who don't live here and haven't lived here for many, many years. So, and what you guys are miscalculating is exactly what's going to happen is, yes, Trump is going to win on election night, but then boxes of ballots will show up. The only problem with this is that there's going to be so many votes for Trump that it's going to be, you're going to have them to say, oh, wow, we have record turnouts all over the place. They're already saying that now.
We are going to have record turnouts. That's after this administration.
Brian, don't skip the queue. You pointed out the queue. It's going to be Jeff, then Rib, and then Badger.
No, but you don't. I totally agree with you. So yes, there will be record turnouts.
Yeah, if you're next, put your fucking hand up.
What you're miscalculating is that's also going to show. I mean, do you believe there's no voter fraud? Jill Stein,
practically not.
Very little.
Damn it, nobody respects the line. Nobody respects the queue. Jeff.
Let Jeff talk.
It does inhibit a free-flowing
I
discussion.
literally just said Jeff and Leo spoke.
Okay. I want to point out a couple of things. The biggest problem with the Republican Party talking about, I'll keep this as short as I possibly can.
Thank you, Jeff.
I can ramble. The biggest problem with them trying to pretend that they're still kind of pro-democracy is the last 4 years of the Trump administration, where they have targeted the courts, right? Because the Republican Party, as a political operation, has identified the least democratic system of the American government, and that is the court system. And so they've just crammed that thing through with ideological fellow travelers, so that they can somehow continue on a legacy after they're gone, because they know they're probably not going to make it through another political wave. But the fact that Biden is polling in some states double digits ahead of Trump is an embarrassment.
The polls are going to close. The polls are going to converge.
Hang on, I wasn't finished. The issue that's going on here, the Republican Party has been actively moving in a direction that is counter-democratic. Any of you guys that are trying to say that the Republicans care about absentee ballots or even care about voting are useful idiots. You are basically ponying up a soft shoe story that can kind of put some comfortable edges on the fact that the Republicans' hardcore stream is to embed their ideology within the foundation of the government to a point where it cannot be removed by democratic means.
Both sides.
This has actually been established by conservative philosophers and thinkers. You guys don't seem to get this.
And by the way, we have 3
reply.
branches of government for a reason. And as far as judges, they're supposed to be. I would agree with you. You don't want ideologues on the court that are not following the law.
Your Republican colleagues would not agree with you. You want ideologues on the court. That's what they're doing.
And they're morally wrong, right?
Oh, good. I'm glad you agree with that.
But I don't believe that having a constitutionalist on the court is a problem.
I do.
How do you define a constitutional?
It's a problem if they're not following the Constitution.
And she's not.
Right.
Okay, hang on. Let me ask you this. I want to give you a thought experiment. One thought experiment. Whoa. One quick thought experiment. A lot of originalists have been complaining about the fact that these ballots are going to be cast or they're going to be counted after the day of election. If you're an originalist and you believe in the original writings of the founding fathers, when those elections were being done, those elections weren't being finalized until months after the votes were cast. That's how long it took them to count them because they were still collecting them. These guys are operating under a paradigm or an idea of a conservative election that simply doesn't exist.
Well, hold on.
They're presupposing it.
Oh, hold on. There are rules for elections, right? There's rules for legal voters, right? You have to be a U.S. citizen of a certain age to vote. So, I mean, that's a slippery slope if you start accepting ballots post-election. Now, I'm willing to accept that can happen, but how long do you let that go? When is the cutoff time for?
They're post-dated, but they have to be post-dated by a certain date.
Yes.
But that means.
So we are following.
Oh, actually, there was a case just today, I think, that they ruled. Oh, you don't have to have a postmark.
Oh, come on. Okay.
Stephen, your question. Yes, thank you, honey.
Stephen Badger.
Look up some of these cases for you guys, because the way to
go ahead, give us some fucking citations.
Sincere, you're more than welcome to post citations if you do have them. We would love to see them. Post them in the live chat while Stephen does his question, and then we can maybe discuss it. And definitely welcome to come back, man.
Please don't post anything from Breitbart or the Federalist or Fox News.
Sorry,
Leo. You complain about the source, right? You complain about the source. Hey, no, you can't complain about the source. You can only complain about the fact. If you can prove the fact wrong, it doesn't matter what the freaking.
No. If you have a reference to the point that you're making, just post it in the private chat, the live chat, or anything like that, so we can back it up, man. You know that's cool. That's all we're asking.
There's a court case or there's not a court case.
Well, you said if we seen yesterday or seen this the other day, so I'm just asking for where you seen it. If you could just post that, man, and then we can all have the same information. No, you can't, really Pat. No, you fucking can't. You really
Stephen's
can't.
Turn, man.
I need to go. I'm popping out. So really quickly, I have a video coming out specifically about this, about the election and climate change. It's really important. Please watch it. And then book club this weekend on Sunday with Aaron Lewis. I gotta go, you guys.
Love you.
See you later.
Love you.
Love you too.
I love you too, Mom.
Get away. Get away. Stephen. And if I can shout out Spartan, Slot Open, and Nathan Artwork. We had a great chat last night.
Maya coming in?
And Maya, I've sent her the link. I'm waiting for her to join if she can get in before anyone.
I want Maya.
God, she is freaking brilliant.
Maya, if she has the link, jump in.
Not to disparage anybody else.
Stephen is never going to get a bloody go. He is stroking that beard. Stephen, put your hand somewhere else and ask Vince a question.
Okay, let's keep a PG-13 on this Christian YouTube channel, please. Look, okay, so I have given my responses to like right-wing positions on this. I have not given my opinion. If you want my opinion, I don't think that every Republican is a racist, but if you are a Republican, you are okay with racism. That's undisputable. The whole thing about being like an originalist or like a textualist, I think they are sometimes called, the massive problem with that is that in 2020, that's impossible. How are you supposed to sit on the Supreme Court and deal with things such as Social Security, such as internet privacy, such as all of these things that have happened in the last 100 years when you are going based off of the Constitution? The Constitution doesn't say anything about Social Security or internet privacy. So how is a Supreme Court judge supposed to make a ruling? Or in that instance, I mean, you can like fully answer this. In that situation, are they going to go, okay, well, I go off of the actual document, so I can't make a ruling here? Is that the situation? Or do they make a ruling? And if they do, they are not a textualist.
No, of course. Well, one, originalist and textualist have been both liberal and conservative. So there's camps on both sides, right, that are.
No, Stephen, he was very quiet while you did yours.
And as far as ruling on based on the Constitution, that's the highest law of our land. But yes, if you have to interpret a law, what you're doing is you're interpreting what the legislature ruled that law, and you're making a ruling on that. It doesn't mean you don't have a finding. Of course, you have a finding. You rule whether or not is that what they meant in this law. If it's and here's the problem: a lot of laws get passed that are ambiguous, right? So you'll have a constitutionalist reject it and say, legislature, if you want to change it, change it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Stephen, are you happy with that response? Brenda, we're working around the queue. Sorry, it's got a little out of fucking control tonight. If we don't give Badger a go and then Leo will probably have a heart attack.
And I'm sorry, there's literally 245 right now, so it's going to take some time for me to give you all the citations on the various cases where we're going back and forth on who's doing what.
That's perfect, man. The longer it takes you to find the citations, the more times I have to bring you back, and the longer conversations we get. All good all round. Badger, have you got a question that you would like?
I just have one other thing to say. Is that okay?
Oh, go on ahead, Stephen. Go on, real quick.
It's in reference to something that I said.
Oh, Badger's now having a heart attack off camera.
The first thing that I said about my opinion on like people who are on the right, like, do you have any like response or thoughts on that?
As far as racism?
Yeah.
One, you're talking to a minority. So two, no. Are there racists? Are there racists in the Republican Party? Sure, that is true. By far, are Republicans racist? No.
Yeah, they are.
And also,
Stephen, let him finish his statement. Stephen,
let the back and forth develop. Come on now.
No, I would really like to understand why you think that.
Okay, so look, like, this is the last thing that I'm going to say, and then I'll move it on to Badger. You can have Jewish Nazis, so please stop trying to Paul me.
Okay, so let's use the left's biggest example, the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Would everybody agree that's one of the biggest examples of Republican racism today?
No, it's
conservative racism. Yes.
The system is the right. That's an example of racist people in America. But the racism that we're generally talking about when we mention racism is systematic. It's not.
I would say it's the overturning of the Civil Rights of the Voting Rights Act.
Okay, well, one, if you look through history, you'll find out that Democrats have been on the wrong side of every civil rights legislation
in the
past 40 years.
No, they haven't.
Two, I don't believe that there's racism in our system. Sure, there are instances of racism. Is systematic racism a problem today?
Yes.
Perhaps in certain.
Perhaps.
No,
yes.
it is. Objectively, it
is.
It's
not, it's not a maybe. It's not like an either or. It's yes.
Give me
Give
an example.
Redlining. The effects of redlining linger to today. The fact that white people didn't have all the things preventing them from developing wealth like white people did because they were slaves and then they were segregated. So white people were capable of developing wealth.
Leo, slow it down.
So back and forth, Leo. Back and forth.
Statistics.
Leo, you said yourself back and forth,
Black
Leo.
families have 8% the wealth of white.
Thank you.
And that's my fault?
No, that's not your fault. No, Leo just needs to breathe. Sorry, Vincere, if you want to make a response to what you did here there. Back and forth, please, Leo. You can't keep over-talking the host. The last time that happened, that was Darth Dawkins, and I fucked him out. Back and forth, man. Back and forth.
Redlining is illegal. So has it happened in the past? Sure, it's happened in the past.
Now you need to unmute Leo.
Look, Leo's biggest point is that the effects of that is still here now. But I mean, if you want like a modern case of like a modern example, something that happened this year, George Floyd.
Where did it happen?
Taylor.
Okay.
any of these people,
Pick
that is an
anyone you
example of
want.
Eric
Tamir Rice.
Okay, pick anyone you want, and then look at who controls the wheel of government in those states and cities, and you'll find a party.
Can we talk about Missouri then?
George Floyd. They have owned that city for over 50 years.
That has nothing to do with the city.
They?
Meaning Democrats.
Democrats. Most of us don't think the Democrats are like the magically good party either.
Come on. Who
Okay.
hired?
Do you agree that federal law is above state law?
Missouri is a remarkably consistently conservative state. What are you talking about?
Who hires the police chief in the city?
The people.
The people, usually.
And who's controlled the politics in those cities for over a decade?
The people.
And why are you complaining to me that you can't get your own shit correct?
Well, I don't live in that state, so this isn't about me.
So,
It's
but
not
I'm
even about me either. I don't even live in the country.
Not to mention that this is a massive sidestep to the corruption that exists.
You're only finding this in
No, it's definitely systemic.
Okay, well,
I don't understand. Hang on, I don't understand the train of logic here doesn't make sense. If I hire a security firm to protect my house, and in the event of them performing their duties, they kill one of my kids, I can raise an objection to that behavior, right?
How many people were shot by the police last year?
Roughly 1,000 are shot by the police in a year, roughly. And that's an average.
And how many of those people were unarmed at the time when they were shot?
Breonna Taylor.
Depends. Breonna Taylor was asleep in her fucking bed.
Okay, so what do you know?
She was standing in the hallway of her apartment.
Do you know the facts around Breonna Taylor?
Yes, I do, quite well.
She was on the warrant, by the way. Now I'm not saying that was a good shoot. I'm just saying
What did you say? She was
Why are
on.
you bringing it up?
She wasn't on the warrant. People weren't on the warrant there. It
Nobody
was
wasn't on the warrant.
Stop making an emotional argument.
If you could explain
not
what
an
you mean by
emotional
on the warrant, because Rib said, "What do you mean by on the warrant?" If you can explain that, and then Jeff
I
will
just-
put his bit
Her
in.
name was.
I just didn't hear him properly, but no, her name was definitely not on the warrant. I just didn't
I
hear him
read
properly
the warrant.
first time. Her name was not on the warrant. They were looking for her boyfriend or
Ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
ex-boyfriend. Sorry, ex-boyfriend.
Corrected. They were both on the. Her boyfriend and her were on the warrant.
No, they
No,
weren't.
they weren't.
That was misinformation that you received.
Okay,
Well, yeah.
I will look it up. I will look that up. But I thought
Hang on, I want to clear that up. Because there's
Jeff,
actually,
if
like,
you
there's-
can retort to Vincier and either Leo, Stephen, or Brian, who are adamant that it is not true, if you could post the link in the live chat, please, for the link for that citation in the
Really,
live
really
chat.
quickly to MathPig, I wanted to say, let me know when I can get like a good minute and a half, 2 minutes, because there was something that Vince, I'm just going to call him Vince, originally said that I wanted to address, but I need a good minute and a half, 2 minutes to just
That's
let
okay.
me know.
Badger hasn't had a bit. Parker hasn't had a bit.
know,
Brenda's
I know.
just joined. We need to work our way around. It's a panel of 9. Everybody needs to get their go.
That's what I'm saying. Just let me know when I have
Oh,
it.
don't worry. So on that, Jeff, if you can respond, you were down to have a bit, and either Brian, Stephen, or Leo, who were saying that Vince was wrong, if you can find a report that says that they either weren't on the warrant or backs up your statements, post it in the live chat. That would be fantastic. Thank you very much, and Vince, Jeff, even
Yeah.
sorry.
I just gave it to you.
no, I was gonna state one of the things that came out. There was
actually conservative career.
Leo, let Jeff speak, please. I really don't want to have to mute you and be a fucking dictatorship. Just let Jeff speak.
There was a misreporting when the story initially came out. It came out of ABC News that the SWAT team had the wrong apartment. The SWAT team was looking for the boyfriend. They were looking for the guy. They cited his name correctly. They also cited her name in terms of it being her apartment. They believed, and this came out later on with subsequent reporting, they believed that he was using her apartment as a stash house. So both are true. It wasn't, they weren't looking to arrest her, but they were looking for her apartment.
Okay.
So I just wanted to point that out.
And it was also misreported that they didn't knock. They didn't.
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
There were 12 people. There were 12 witnesses.
Oh my God!
Testified.
Leo.
All of them said there was no knock. One of them said they heard it knock. They heard them knock one time. The other 11 said they heard no knocks under oath in the court. Not only that, but the boyfriend.
Her boyfriend said it. Her boyfriend said it. Come on.
I just want 10 seconds, and then I promise I won't get involved in on this specific topic anymore.
No. We're gonna move on. We're gonna give Stephen a bit, and then we're gonna move on. Say hello to Parker. Say hello to Brenda. Brenda is also a Trump voter, I think, if I'm correct on that, Brenda. So we will get your opinion.
No. Okay, so they knocked
10, 15
or
seconds.
not.
That's all I want. That's all I want.
And the funny thing is, it wasn't a no-knock warrant. It originally was, and then it got changed.
Leo, seriously, I have 10 or 15 seconds.
Read the case.
10 or 15 seconds.
And the testimony, and then correct.
God, I love how we're just preventing a free-flowing conversation here tonight.
No, we're trying to give everybody a chance, Leo, and you're responding to every single comment. You have to let everybody else.
Stupid shit, and I won't have to respond.
Can I have 10 or 15 seconds?
Yes, Stephen, I'm trying. I'm really trying.
Okay.
Back and forth develop.
The most upsetting thing that I have kind of heard in the last kind of few minutes is that I can hear every single video that you have watched. I know the names of every person that you have gotten this disinformation from, and it's just saddening.
Okay, well, if you believe that, that's fine.
I believe that because it's a fact. I know the names of the people that you have watched in order to get this sort of information. I know them.
Well, they actually produced and provided some evidence to back that up, right? So I'm not looking at a video.
Right.
I'm looking at a freaking article.
Right, because no article online is ever false.
No, I agree with that.
What is the evidence that...
Also, you should always, and if I'm wrong, that's fine. That's fine. But I'm giving you the information that I have at hand. So.
Okay, so you had mentioned that you have the evidence on your side. What is the evidence that you have?
Well, okay. Well, so let me get the numbers for how many people were shot by the police last year.
I meant specifically to do with the Breonna Taylor case.
Okay. Well, I'm looking through this the testimony to see where the boyfriend said that they did knock. So, because that was widely reported that they didn't knock. And her own boyfriend, when he was interviewed, said that they knocked. And
when he was interviewed after he was arrested?
My understanding was that he testified to a commotion. He heard a commotion outside. He thought somebody was trying to break in.
Well,
yeah. So that is the information that I also heard. But we know that confessions can be coerced when you're in a police station. You even if this particular one wasn't, you will admit to that being like a thing that happened, correct?
Yeah, I agree with that. That's possible.
Okay. And again, I'm not even saying that that's what happened in this case. I'm just saying that is possible, but that's not the reporting that I got. He was responding to a commotion that he heard outside. That is the information that I have.
And I'm looking for the reference right now for you, where it says that he heard the knock. And when he heard the knock, I mean, it was when he heard the knock, basically it says that they were in bed watching a movie. They heard someone banging on the door. They get up to go investigate. The police rush in the door. He has a gun. He shoots at the officer. He hits the officer, and the officers fire back.
Yeah, because they didn't announce that they were police, and they weren't wearing their uniforms.
They did announce that they were police. Do you think they were knocking for...
I mean, look, well, okay, so hang on there now, because you did a very clever language trick that I don't know that everybody in the audience actually picked up on. You said that they knocked originally, and then you and then you switched that to say that they banged on the door. So did they knock or did they bang on the door?
Well,
I didn't either.
I can tell you what he said. They banged on the door, but what's written in the testimony is, and I'm going to find it for you. It's hard to scramble to find stuff when just ad hoc.
Yeah, I understand.
If the boyfriend is as guilty as you kind of suspect,
I'm not claiming the boyfriend is guilty. I'm not claiming that.
He was the charges against. He was initially charged with shooting a police officer. Those charges were dropped before the evening was done.
Her ex-boyfriend may have been guilty. I'm not claiming her current boyfriend.
With the stupid fucking camera shit again.
Right, I'm not claiming that her current boyfriend did anything wrong. That may be a reasonable response. If you're rousted out of bed and you have someone banging on your door,
right? Who is defending the ex-boyfriend? Everybody thinks that the ex-boyfriend was actually guilty of selling drugs. He actually was a drug dealer. The issue was whether or not he was using his ex-girlfriend's place as a stash house. They raided the stash house while the ex-girlfriend was there with her current boyfriend and shot them.
I understand that. I understand that. So was this a accident that when they executed the warrant and a shot was fired, that in the heat of the moment that the police shot back, hitting Breonna Taylor?
Okay, I'm going to ask you, why was there a heat of the moment, given the fact that this particular house, they went in there like a military crew into a situation that they could have actually just investigated.
I wouldn't even describe it as a military crew because they weren't wearing their uniforms. They were wearing the same types of clothes as I or Robbie is right now. That's the types of clothes that they were wearing.
Plain
They
clothes,
were wearing just normal clothes.
I
So
can't
you
confirm
picture that from their perspective.
I can't
You hear
confirm
a
that.
commotion
No, it's already
outside.
been confirmed.
Door
The
is
officers
knocked
even
in,
admitted it.
and several people, 6 or 7 of them, burst into your apartment wearing normal clothes, all of them brandishing weapons and pointing them at you. You don't think you're going to freak the fuck out in that situation?
Of course. That's why I'm saying he may have not done anything wrong. I'm not claiming that he did. I'm saying that.
Okay, I think everybody was operating under the assumption that you were kind of talking about that particular boyfriend, not the ex-boyfriend who had the warrant against him. That ex-boyfriend, no one is defending that guy.
And nor am I. I'm just.
What are you talking about?
I'm providing a little latitude that this could have been a accident. That when
that's the problem.
Accident.
If an accident happened with lots of bullets going into an innocent woman's body, resulting in her death, that causes a problem, especially when the guys that are doing the overreaction by pulling the triggers on their weapons at said innocent victim. That's a problem. That's the reason this became a controversy in the first place. They burst into this person's apartment. They're plain clothes. They're brandishing weapons. It's controversial as to whether or not they announce themselves as cops or not. The boyfriend reacts as if the place is being invaded. He goes to investigate, armed with a gun, fires at one of the cops. They return fire and kill his girlfriend. That's the entire situation. If this had happened to white folks in Kansas, every fucking NRA member would be up in arms at the overstepping, jackbooted thuggery of those cops. But in this particular case, all of those NRA members are backing the cops. Why?
And actually, I'm a Carrie, and I probably would have reacted in much the same way. The only thing I'll say is, if someone's knocking on my door and they're announcing that they're police, I'm not going to shoot them.
That's alleged. We don't know.
Yeah,
that's still in dispute, given testimony.
I understand.
There are witnesses that say that didn't happen. There are witnesses. The police are all saying that they did.
I'm starting to wonder if this topic might be a topic for a stream on its own.
I would like to just add a few comments to it if I may.
There are better examples of police violence on people of color than this. This isn't the gray area. This isn't the gray area that you could defend either side. And actually, I'm defending the boyfriend. So,
okay, but everybody was actually talking about the other boyfriend, and you were kind of like playing along with this, which is a little bit disingenuous.
Well, that was a misunderstanding. I said we're in bed. Her boyfriend and them and her were watching a movie. They jump out of bed when they hear a loud bang on the door. As soon as the police fly in, they're in the hallway. Her boyfriend is armed. He shoots them. He shot, and by that way, he really messed that cop up.
And then, just if I can, Vince, if you can get to the end of this, round it up, and so I want to give Mr. Parker a tap, and then I want to give Brenda a tap. They've recently joined. I know, Leo, you've got some stuff, but that could go down. I want to include everybody and get it. It's a very bad topic.
I can go last to end.
Yeah, well, I don't want to come back to the topic. It's that topic that it is. It deserves a stream all on its own. So, Vince, if you can sort up what you're doing there, and then we'll move across the table. We'll go Parker and then Brenda.
You have things.
I really don't have any more to say about this case other than let's examine the facts passionately, and then determine whether or not there was wrongdoing. And if there was wrongdoing, then you convict the police.
Definitely welcome to have that back, man. We'll definitely love to have you back. This has been very fiery back and forth, and exactly what we're aiming for here, bringing people together of different beliefs and views and trying to make sure that everybody gets a voice. So, Mr. Parker, thank you very much for joining. Is there anything that you would like to comment? There's nothing this fucking topic from what has been happening earlier tonight or anything that you would like to input.
I came in to join in to talk about this topic.
Exactly.
And yeah, I'm sorry. But my idea. So I think Vince said something about there being a warrant for Brianna. Is that correct?
I may have been incorrect. Her name was probably on the warrant. I'm going to look that up.
As the resident, I think you're right. She was the resident, but I don't think the warrant was for her.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was for her address, and they were just policing her location and mailing address. I can give you sources for those if you need that.
And I can understand why she was standing behind him. Things like that have happened at my house, and my wife is always standing behind me. So.
Yeah, I just want to clear that up because I couldn't find a single article that's linked her to directly being to the warrant except her address. It just related to her boyfriends and two other dudes.
That was in a way, he was right to say that her name was on the warrant, but as the resident of that address.
And it was something that came up. Actually, there were some other conservative people that were trying to say, "Oh, well, Breonna Taylor was actually named in the warrant," but saying that is misleading. Named doesn't mean cited.
Yeah,
it was just a place of residence.
There are so many more better cases to cite for police misconduct than Breonna Taylor, just because there is some wiggle room for interpreting the events.
You want to talk about George Floyd?
I think you want to argue
kick Brian.
When people got upset about the fact that she was shot by the cops, the level of callousness that came out from people trying to like downplay that was what ended up fueling the story. It was people basically saying this was not a big deal, that the cops were just doing their job. The cops shot an innocent person. The level of disregard that they displayed towards somebody like Breonna Taylor would not have been displayed if she was, white.
Well, my view on that is everybody should let the investigation proceed. And I do understand that there's been a history of police getting off on these types of events because they're given the benefit of the doubt, and they shouldn't be in all cases. But in recent history, we have seen police get convicted. So let the justice system kind of play itself out. And if it seems like an injustice has occurred after that, then yeah, go ahead and have at it.
Well, the problem is that the allegation coming from a lot of people is that the justice system is played out when it comes to issues like this. The overwhelming urge from the public, if the victim is of a particular skin tone, is very different one way or the other. Yeah. That's at the heart of this issue. And to ignore that, I think, is to ignore the real reason that people are actually struggling with it. The real reason that people, suffered over this. The reason that they were, feeling sad about this kind of situation, because on top of everything that else that happened, you had apologists coming out and saying, "Oh, she deserved to get shot." This is actually going on now. She deserved to get shot because she was a thug. She was a trap queen. That's what they're now trying to paint. And I can actually name you people that are doing this. They're on YouTube.
Yeah, and that's reprehensible, right?
Yes.
And I'm not advocating for that.
Well, that's good, but I'm just saying that's where this has gone. That would not have gone in this direction if it was just some middle class white girl. It wouldn't have gone that way. There was no narrative to spin in that direction.
Okay, and I actually found the citation on how many people were killed by the police last year. 1,004 were killed by the police in 2019. Of that, 371 were white, 236 were black. The other part of that number were spread across people of different races.
Keep in mind that white people are still over 75% of the population, and blacks only represent 14% of the population. That is remarkably high.
No, I'm not making that argument. So let's break down that number. So of that number, of the 1,004, the 371, and 236, 9 of those were unarmed.
I can just say, I think this is going to go down a stream's worth.
It probably will.
Should we press the election,
hole.
maybe?
It's going to be a rabbit hole that'll never end, and I do have Brenda has been very quiet. I want to give Brenda a chance. Leo's biting his fingers. He'll want to have a bit. And then we'll work around the room, say thanks and all the rest of it. So, Brenda, is there anything that you would like to add in the very fucking limited and bastard time that I'm giving you?
Well, I want to vote for MathPig for moderator over at Modern Day Debates.
I try my best, Brenda, and I take that as good criticism. Thank you very much.
You've been doing a lot of work. You've been doing a lot of work. I'm not a Trump voter. I might have given that impression because of the limited space in
Yes.
Twitter. Yes, that was a mistake on my part. It was just a
No,
bad grammar. And I actually typically stay somewhat away from political topics. Most of the time I debate people who are creationists and flat earthers and things like that. And so that's why I've been kind of quiet. I think it's a really tough issue. I think probably the best thing we could probably do to reduce some of these things is get at what I think is probably the root of the problem, which is to make drugs decriminalize at the very least, at least the sale of marijuana and probably other drugs, and have more better legislation around that, so that we aren't criminalizing people for smoking marijuana. And then I think we get rid of some of this.
Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate you joining, and definitely, I know. Yeah, join again. We'll definitely move forward from that. Leo, is there anything you would like to add before we do our little roundup?
Yeah. So, and I have the source here.
Okay, someone hit the timer.
Ballistics reports show that Kenneth Walker was using hollow points and that the police were not. The bullet with the blood on it, the only bullet that was found with blood on it, was not a hollow point. So it was probably friendly fire that actually ended up hitting the police officer. It actually wasn't Kenneth Walker. Also, I have another fact check here from USA Today that says that, number one, the custody, or the person that they were looking for, Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend, was already in custody at the time, and they actually did have the wrong address. And I also have another fact check here from a local news source that states that actually the superiors of these police officers ordered them to knock and announce. There were 12 witnesses that testified under oath in the court during this trial that stated that they did, or 11 of them stated they did not hear a knock. One of them stated that they heard a knock one time. The boyfriend said that he doesn't recall hearing a knock. He recalls hearing the door broken down. It is a fact, an objective fact, that these cops were in plain clothes. So if somebody broke down my door in the middle of the fucking night in plain clothes and I had a gun, you goddamn right I'm shooting. Another thing is that the state of Kentucky is a protect your castle state. That's why, even though the police department tried to charge Kenneth Walker with unjustifiably shooting a cop, they couldn't do it, and the district attorney even told them, no, you can't do this. And it's funny that the NRA didn't come to his defense because he's a black man. So yeah, there's been a lot of misinformation that's been flying out about this thing. It's just in the wrong. Conservatives are in the wrong, and the reason that they consistently try to argue that somehow Breonna Taylor was in the wrong, or that somehow, the cops were justified in what they did, is because these conservatives are fucking racists.
No, that's not true.
Here, make your finding statement. No, Leo, you finished. Leo, you finished. Leo, you finished. Vincier, if you can make one wee retort, and then we'll work our way around the room.
I think you're solving the wrong problem. And in the
Leo,
in the Breonna Taylor case, I think that what you just argued is fine. The interpretation of the case needs to occur. So, and I'm not arguing that was not a reasonable response to what happened. I never argued that. I said I probably would have done the same thing. So that's not my argument. My argument is, if someone comes to the door and you shoot someone and they respond back with fire, we have to examine the evidence and determine if there was wrongdoing. If you find wrongdoing with the police at that point, then lock them up.
Well, Vince, I have to say, at the end of the day, you have came into a room with 8 people who are, at least 7 that disagree with you wholeheartedly, and one, we're only getting to know Saul. Oh, Jeff just says he agrees with you.
No. I wanted to point out that I agreed with most of the second half of the stuff that Leo demonstrated, but I have some questions about the first half of some of the stuff that he demonstrated. I have some questions about some of that
The problem is, it all comes down to what was the initial decision. Everything else that follows seems reasonable. If that makes sense.
On both sides.
He shoots because they broke in. They opened fire and right. All that seems a reasonable response.
Except for the cop in the back who was just shooting wildly. That's a little out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the part that gets a little weird. Is the guy, and that was one of the guys actually ended up getting. Those were the charges that were brought, and he was recklessly firing into another apartment. It's like, okay, well, the group of you were at recklessly firing into Breonna Taylor. I would have thought that would have carried a higher penalty than them recklessly firing into another apartment, but maybe not.
But that points to a different issue. I'm not arguing that there's problems with the police, but I think the problems with the police is more due to training and the relaxing of policing standards over the decades.
Okay, I couldn't agree more. From being in the UK, I think you have absolutely shit policing standards.
Some of the police departments
I'll second that.
Reactive shooting method, which is don't think about who you're shooting. If someone presents a danger, pull the trigger. That's the wrong method.
Escalation, basically, across most of the US. The primary aim is not to de-escalate; it's to end it.
So what if the police put in danger?
Well, there is a force continuum that they're supposed to follow, but in that case, they were executing a warrant. So
the problem with the force continuum side of things, if you present that, they have a force continuum. The issue that they usually end up running into, and many people that have presented the force continuum as form of training for police officers acknowledge that it doesn't really take into account unconscious bias. That's one of the problems with it. So it's one thing to say that you're evaluating a dangerous situation based on the situations at hand, but if you've got an individual that just, for whatever reason, thinks that black people are more dangerous than whites, they're going to react much more aggressively and much more lethally in that situation than someone who didn't. And you can't really account for that in a force of continuum stratagem. The force of continuum thing is basically saying that everything is essentially equal. There's just the person in front of me is crying, the person is angry, the person has a crowbar, the person has a gun, the person's pointing the gun at me. That's the force of continuums, frequent.
Can I add on to something you said earlier, Jeff? You mentioned that one cop only got wanton endangerment. I love how the only one cop gets charged for potentially endangering other people, but none of them get charged for literally fucking murdering an innocent woman in her sleep.
Or at least manslaughter, right? It's at least manslaughter.
The third links that I provided show that the warrant was not even justified because the person they were searching for was already in custody and they actually had the wrong address on the warrant.
They executed 2 warrants at both places. Supposedly simultaneously.
We're done. Brianna, done.
Done.
It's a totally different.
Totally done. Totally done.
I
Stephen, I think, is going to host an after show. So if Stephen has a StreamYards hangout, I think it would be best that Stephen, me and Dave and shite, but I think it would be best if Stephen, if you have an after party link, post it in the private chat so anybody who wants to be able to move straight across from there to here, from here to there, has the ability to do that. I'm talking.
I'll show up. I'll show up, Stephen. I know you like me.
Yeah,
I do. I want Jeff to show. If Jeff doesn't show up, what's the point? I mean.
Yeah, man. Jeff's the only reason why I'm here. Okay, I'm sorry.
Can I ask one question, Stephen? Are you working, Stephen? Are you working tomorrow?
I am, yeah.
Oh damn! No chance of fucking Jeff and his boxers. Right? Okay then.
And Vincier, I just like,
that's not necessarily true.
Like, I would be extremely interested in you kind of coming over because I don't want it to be like a circle jerk, because I know that me, Jeff, and Leo kind of like agree and stuff like that. So if you would want to kind of come over, and I can't say that I'm as good as modding as MathPig is, but you know what? I'll try my darndest.
I think you'll find that we will kind of meet in the middle. So, because I'm all for justice. I just think we're solving some of the wrong problems.
Perfect. Right. Well, if anybody, Dave, if you can you please post cider and port ribs /Stevens link in the chat for everybody to move across over there. And yeah, if anybody has anything they would like to shill, I have no interview sorted for next week. Manda's show, the book club that I am involved in for the book that I have. Is to fucking read it. That's happening on Sunday, and so
you can. I do have a question, MathPig. Are we still getting together tomorrow?
Yeah, if you don't hate me after me telling you're an over-talking bastard, if you're still happy enough and put up with me, I'll do that, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wasn't really over-talking.
I'm only winding you up, Leo. I'm only winding you up.
You are a raw dogging motherfucker.
And I appreciate that. You should be finishing it at your age.
No, definitely, Vince. Jump over. Stephen has a good attitude as well, although he is a damn bloody socialist. You have to put up with him. You know?
Well, so am I.
You don't know what I am.
Yeah.
So, and everybody, if you could check out Not Rib in the live chat, that is Stephen's channel.
Not Rib.
I did want to say hi to Randolph Richardson, who's in the chat.
Yes, hi to Randolph. Hi to everybody in the chat as well. Thank you all for watching. This would not be worthwhile if it wasn't for the people that came across and watched, the people that jumped on. The panel gets a big hug and a giant shout out. I'm going to try and be better in this, my Patreons. You know, the money that you do contribute, the bits that you do contribute, it really does help out. It really, really does. And if you could hit that subscribe button, I'm so close to fucking 1,000, you know, and I was 869, but then I lost a sub. I'm blaming YouTube. Somebody just doesn't want me to be that. But
that was me.
Did you unsubscribe?
I'm kidding.
Fucking that bastard. Right. No.
I wanted to see if you'd kick me. So.
No, everybody, really, thank you all for coming. This has been a wonderful conversation. Vince, I would like to get you back and move forward something maybe more specific rather than yourself against fucking 7 other people. We'll try and focus it down to just 2. Yeah.
I actually don't mind the odds. If I knew the topic beforehand, I would come in with citations for you.
Perfect, man. Perfect. I know Rib's always fond of a 2-on-2, so if you have anybody that you'd like to tag team him with, Steve, always down for it.
That sounded a little bit wrong out of context.
We're gonna sound bite of that.
Do you want to have a friendly chat with someone at some point? Oh, semi-friendly anyway. I am slightly bad-tempered. So
I am so sorry.
Do try to have.
I can tell you.
I do try to have chats on my channel sometimes.
Just look at your face. I'm so bad-tempered.
This has been.
Yeah, I am cozy in my blanket. That's why I'm so bad-tempered today.
It has been really good to see you back, Badger. It really has. We have. So Badger might be in Stevens. He might not. You don't know. Check it out. You'll have to click that button to see. Click the button here. Do all the bits and bobs. And on that note, we will oink. We will out.